Start that, and I will welcome everybody, whether you're going to watch us live or end up watching the replay. We will welcome you and thank you for joining us and following along. Welcome to this edition of Inside the Classroom. For anybody watching that might not know me, and when you hear my voice, I'm Alex Heron, the Assistant Director of Alumni and Parent Engagement at Stetson University. A couple of the things I get to do in the office: I work with our admissions team and help them network and connect our alumni with potential students and their families. So we get to kind of get them questions answered about Stetson life and anything related to what it means to be a Hatter, which is great. We get to connect a lot of alumni with potential students and their families, get to work with a lot of our athletic staff and coaches and work with their alumni weekends, tailgates, any of that fun stuff. So that's good. And then since moving to this virtual world for the time being, I get to manage and kind of run with these webinars and Zoom events, all these fun things we're doing virtually. So that's just a few of the things I get to do in the office. And then tonight, we're very excited to have Bud Hanson with us, the Executive Director of Professional and Corporate Education at Stetson. And he's going to share a little bit about the PACE program for everybody and hopefully get you all fired up about that. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Bud and let him introduce himself.
Thanks, Alex. I am about to start the slideshow here. There we go. Okay, perfect. So yeah, probably for the next 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about professional education. It goes by a few names. Some universities will call it professional development. It gets mixed in a little bit with continuing education, but basically it's bettering yourself professionally. And I'm going to start with a story. Storytelling is something that I've considered with over the years, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself here in just a second. But imagine, if you would, you're walking through the woods and you walk across this gentleman that's covered with sawdust and sweat. It looks like he's been toiling all day, cutting down trees for lumber yards and things like that. Been very busy. He's sweating. He looks like he's got a lot left to do. And it's like you walk up to him. And it's like, what are you doing? And the gentleman says, can't you see? I'm trying to cut down all this wood. I've got to saw all this before the end of the day. And the young man goes, well, looks like you've got a lot to do. Why don't you take a break? Maybe sharpen your saw. And so as the story goes, the old man goes, I'd love to, but I just don't have time. I'm too busy sawing to take time to sharpen the saw. And so that metaphor was one that was made tremendously famous in Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It was actually habit number 7. And sharpening the saw means preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, which is you. And so I want to kind of plant that story in your brain about sharpening the saw as we talk about, reskilling, retooling for the new workforce, keeping your skills sharp, and continuing to learn. So a little bit about me. I've worn many hats. I have started my career many moons ago. Well, first of all, I got my undergrad at University of South Florida in management. Parlayed that into a sales position with a little pet food company out of St. Louis called Purina, and worked with them for about 15 years in a variety of capacities. Started in sales, managed people, ended up in brand management, managed a lot of their events with the Purina brands. They have about 40 brands. So large company, kind of back in the day where good TV creative was king, pre-social media, and so it was a great place to learn about marketing and branding and consumer insights. I left there in 2004 to move back to Florida, which is my home state, to take care of some family issues, which turned out fine. But me back to Florida, where I hung my shingle as a consultant. I helped brands and businesses stage events, create retail experiences and things like that. I started a second business consulting also in the power of storytelling. And I also, over the last 4 or 5 years, have adjunct taught at Stetson University. So This is kind of my perfect job in a sense that kind of takes advantage of all the skills that I've learned, kind of weaves in the teaching aspects, and for a campus that I really enjoy, and for a faculty and staff that I really enjoy. So I am the executive director, as Alex mentioned, of the professional and corporate education, which basically means I'm in charge of taking the resources that Stetson has in terms of their faculty and their buildings and their talents and skills and knowledge, and packaging that for a different consumer, meaning the working adults that are not interested in degrees, are not interested in credits, but they have a gap in their learning that they need to continue on with their professional career. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So we're going to start with facts. Some of this may ring true for you. Crazy times we're in right now. Some folks may be rethinking their career choices. Unfortunately, could be displaced or basically, waiting for kind of what's next. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the workforce. In terms of a college degree, my undergrad, I also have my master's MBA from Southern Illinois University, and I would not trade it for anything in the world. I think it helped me get to where I am today, but that was many years ago. Today, even though Stetson is doing better than most, traditional degree-seeking enrollment is flat to declining. Businesses don't see that piece of paper as the sole solution for gaining talent and workforce development. And if you really think about the skills that we graduate with and the education that we have, the skills, the half-life of the skill has dropped from about 30 years to an average of 6. So said differently, a skill that I will take into the workforce today in about 6 years is half as valuable as it was the day I entered the job. So a lot of that's somewhat troubling, and if you kind of continue to think through it here, the workforce is mostly made up of Gen Z and millennials. A lot of the folks that may be watching this video may fit into those two demographics. If you think about by the time we all reach age 40, the current numbers are that we'll hold 10 different jobs, and this number is actually projected to grow. So the days of getting your degree, going to work in a company, staying there until you retire, long gone. Individuals really need to stay upskilled to stay employed. Upskilled meaning always looking at what's next, what's the position, what's required of the next job I may encounter, and continuing to, as they say, sharpen the saw. Employers are reporting the highest talent shortages since 2007. So there's a huge demand for appropriately trained individuals to do these jobs. And if you think about it, a lot of millennials do have a strong interest in not necessarily masters or degrees, but earning certifications. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And again, this is not a slam on higher education. It's my employer. I value the MBA that I have, and I would never discourage anyone from doing that. But I just talk about PACE and professional education as an option. World Economic Forum put out a Future of Jobs report a few years back that had some interesting headlines in it. They say by the year 2020, today, so this was 2 years ago, over a third of the skills that workers need will have changed, and for a variety of factors that we're going to talk about in a second. By 2022, 75 million jobs are expected to be displaced, again, for a variety of reasons, in 20 major industries and economies. And said differently, half of all employees are going to need some sort of reskilling or upskilling to stay relevant with their current position. Mostly due to technological advances, could create about 133 million new roles. So it's not all gloom and doom. We may lose 75 million, but the new work that we're doing will create other jobs. And then I had a little point in here. This slide was meant to build, so we've kind of lost our excitement here. But and then there was COVID-19. So I'll throw out the word unprecedented for the 27th time today, probably. But that has really changed the dynamics of employment as we know it. So, these new jobs that are being created, a lot of it is through automation. And what we do as humans versus what machines can do. A couple years ago, the human element comprised over 70% of the work that needed to be done, with 30% handled by humans. 2 years from now, that number is closer to 50-50. And even 5 years from now, the human side will probably be less than the work that is done by machines. So all those are things that need some attention, that will create new jobs, and just a fact that we need to kind of frame our thinking in as we kind of stay current with the workforce. 1 out of 3 workers say they would change their field of work if they lost their job. That's happening today. And I think I talked to a lot of people in a given day, particularly recently, that are saying they were furloughed, they were let go, and they're really scratching their heads and going, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I may want to go back and really take a pivot and look at something different. This is all out of the World Economic Forum report. So where are they going when they transition into other fields? Over, looks like about 40% are going into 3 sectors: business, IT, and finance. So those 3 are showing strong growth. Some of the other ones are a little flatter. Apologize for any thunder. We're having a terrible thunderstorm here in Ormond Beach. So why do we seek new work? Things are a little bit different. Again, back in the day, you may graduate and get your job with your corporation, manufacturing, whatever. You stay there through retirement. You didn't really think you had a choice. And even if you did, you didn't know, what you would do. But what we're seeing now are the motivations for wanting to change fields are split. Clearly, people want to make more money, and that's always going to be a motivator, currently at 50%. But notice a couple of the other dynamics that are going on. People are looking for jobs for a greater purpose and fit. So they're looking for companies that, as they say, do well by doing good, companies that stand for something that align with their values. And they may be looking for positions that have more autonomy over their career path, or more autonomy over some of the people they lead. So those are all things of why people are looking for new work. Now, the downside is, as people look for these positions, they often will need to kind of get upskilled and retool their skill sets. And this is where certainly PACE comes in. But a lot of them say they don't really know where to go. They don't think they have the access to the education and the training. Some of that may be that their current employer doesn't provide it, or they really haven't dug deep enough into the plethora of courses that are online, as well as in seated classrooms through universities. So again, having said that, and to reiterate, not a slam on higher education at all, but degree programs may not always be the best fit. If you're looking to change careers, you might not need a master's unless they require it, but you may need some training in project management. You may need, if you're transitioning from a salesperson to a sales manager, you may need some training in management and leadership. So Americans that are looking to kind of twist their paths for their careers, they are preferring these non-degree programs and skills training over degree programs. And what it boils down to in a nutshell is a bit of a problem that's been going on for a long time. And that is basically that, if you roll the tape back a century or so ago, the jobs that were out there were mostly manual labor, perhaps clerical, and we knew how to train those types of positions. But today, the way most people perform these jobs, and mostly because the way we train them to perform these jobs, is still kind of several decades behind. So what's happening is the training needs to catch up with the work that is needed in the workforce. And so a lot of times, the degree-seeking students, those those curriculum and that education, if you will, is somewhat rigorous. It's basically led by someone or a university that says to get this degree you need these particular classes, and you don't quite have as much control over what you need in the workforce, and possibly because you don't know it. But essentially, education needs to adapt. Professional development kind of fills that gap, and as you come in with needs, hopefully PACE can help you out with that. So our solution with PACE are these short form learning modules. These are not 16-week semesters. Many of these classes range from 5 to 10 contact hours to some of the more strategic sessions might be several days over a few months, really based on what the market needs, what the workers needs. I'm constantly in contact with employers, asking them what are their gaps, what are their needs of their workforce, and delivering those based on the needs of that workforce. We try and have different modalities. Hopefully as times change and we're able to have more seated classes, we will move in that direction, because I really feel that's what we do best at Stetson. But we do have some online classes currently in place, and we'll always have online classes because the working adult doesn't always have the flexibility of schedules. We try and pull in faculty as much as possible. I look at subject matter experts, I look at consultants, we look at adjuncts, and really try and find the best fit of instructor for the course and for the student. Some faculty are very good in front of a room of 19, 20, 21-year-olds, don't relate quite as well to the older audiences. And in other cases, sometimes adjuncts are coming out of industry and may be perfect for teaching that audience. So a lot of things go into fielding a PACE course. We have core curriculum content, we have strategy workshops and custom content, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. Basically, I call them just-in-time and only as needed learners. So I can market as much as I need to this audience, but basically my students come to PACE when they have a skills gap that needs to be filled, and it's typically because they want to advance in their career, choose a different career path, and they need it. Okay, so there's always a need first, and then they come in and it's like, okay, I just want to learn this. That's all I need. I don't want credits, I don't want degrees, I don't want diplomas. I just need to learn project management. I need to learn Six Sigma. I need to learn about cybersecurity, leadership, management, etc. These are typically working adults, although not always. We sometimes have folks that are looking for a career path, trying to get prepared for one, and are currently unemployed. Mostly millennials and Gen Z. I would say our average student in professional development is probably a median age of about 35 to 40. They want experience and solutions, not necessarily credits. They want certificates and badges, not necessarily degrees. And again, as I mentioned, they have a skills gap, they need it filled. Just give me what I need, let me go. So who are these students? As top right, this is Janet McCarthy. She's, and these are all fictitious examples, but just to give you, some insight as to who these students are. Janet is a salesperson, has worked for a company for 5 to 6 years. She's got a chance to go for a open position in management, managing salespeople. And so she wants to kind of quickly learn as much as she can about managing people. Bottom right is Andrea Olson. Andrea has been a stay-at-home mom and bookkeeper for several clients for a while, and she needs to go back and prepare for a CFP exam that she's thinking about starting as a new career. If you go to the bottom left, we've got Alex, who is in the construction trades, and he thinks with a project management degree he can move into the inside office and manage the construction projects more effectively. And then the top left, PACE also delivers custom content, in this case to an agency that wants to do some creativity workshops and brainstorming sessions for a new product they're launching. So that kind of gives you a wide variety of who my PACE students are. They will differ dramatically from the folks that you may have sat with in your classes as alumni over the years. But again, these are people that have a learning gap, they want it filled. Professional development, I call it a sea of sameness out there, maybe because I'm more in tune to it and have signed up for a variety of email newsletters and get pixeled and tagged by different brands. But particularly in the online space, it is everywhere. And I think during this pandemic, professional development has shown a spike in demand as people are furloughed out of positions, looking to take downtime at home. They're online, take some courses, and get prepared for what's next in their professional life. They're advertised everywhere. Here's several of them just from around here. Many universities will have a professional development group. If you look at the kind of the bottom there, even Groupon is selling some form of master's certificates. I didn't go too far to view the deal, but professional education, continuing education is everywhere. And for Stetson's PACE program, we have to kind of break out of the mold. So I like to use this example as a marketer. One of my favorite sayings is sometimes it's better to be different than. And so, if you look at the top, I don't want to be just another Apple comparing apples to apples, even though there may be slight shades of differentiation in coloring and things like that and taste. It's still an apple. And so what I'd rather do is be compared apples to oranges. And so, let Stetson do what Stetson does best, which is high quality, high touch, lots of student engagement, lots of experiential learning, and we will excel in professional development as we do in our undergrad and graduate programs. So my strategy, again, sometimes it's better to be different than better, the apples to oranges comparison. We're also going to win with hyper-relevant content to a narrowly defined audience, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. 3 primary areas: individualized business acumen, executive strategy workshops, custom corporate training are kind of my 3 pillars that provide content and also revenue for the program. Hopefully there'll be a day where I can lean towards more of an in-class or hybrid programs, although we do have online programs launched initially. But I also am very cognizant of our parent, the Stetson brand, what it stands for, and there's no reason that professional development should be differentiated from that. So I try and do my best to maintain alignment with the Stetson brand. So 3 areas of content: targeted business acumen. This would be most of your popular short form courses, whether it's project management, the Microsoft Excel, MOA certificates, Six Sigma, cybersecurity, those types of things. Could be delivered in person. Right now, we're delivering these courses online. Second category is these executive leadership series. I'll talk more about that in a second. And custom services is really, where PACE will be the conduit with one particular customer, typically a larger customer, for example, AAA, MasterCard, NASCAR. Somebody has a specific need for a group of employees. Maybe it's a group of their senior level managers that need management training. It could be salespeople that need sales training. But essentially, we'll take the faculty and our curriculum to the offices of these groups and customize courses just for them. So those kind of a long sales cycle, but we hope to do more of those as time goes along. So targeted business acumen, first bucket here. These are more of the hard skills. Think tactical over strategic. Typical course might run $500 to $1,000. Typical course might take a day to a day and a half. sales, finance, think that. I want to align behind 4 industry verticals, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So these 4 industry verticals, I did a lot of research through MC and Burning Glass, which is kind of workforce data providers that say what's going on in kind of our Volusia, Lake, Seminole, a little bit of Orange geographic areas, our DMA, and really what's the industries that are large and popular and increasing and employ a lot of people. Hospitality and destination marketing. So clearly, that would be all the experiential attractions, that would be hoteliers, anybody that's involved in the tourism industry is big in this area, as you can imagine. Healthcare, as baby boom age, clearly that's a big sector, and one that we have partnered with on some of our master's programs through the University of Florida, Advent Health, and things like that. Service providers. This could be anybody from consultants to lawyers to painters to CFPs, etc. Anybody that sells their time, not a thing, and then small to medium-sized manufacturing. So if you lay the things that we do best, at least through the LBC, business analytics, HR, finance and accounting, marketing, and sales management and leadership, then when I talk about hyper-relevant content, what that means is I'll look at a course, for example, how do you competitively price your time targeted towards service providers, lawyers, CFPs, consultants, etc. We might look at a course on positioning your destination for success. So the marketing folks would just to repackage the content, and my sales efforts and marketing efforts would be targeted at these particular verticals. A couple of other ones here: HR performance management for healthcare, so understanding the data for manufacturing, closing more leads when you don't sell a product. John Riggs and his team have some awesome resources there and great faculty. So this could be a course provided to service providers that don't sell a thing, but they're selling their time. And it kind of helps differentiate from, again, that sea of sameness that I talked about earlier. Marketing for the legal profession. Lawyers certainly need help marketing. The second bucket is these executive leadership series. These will clearly be developed as we are able to bring more people back onto our campus safely. But these are more of the soft skills. These are on-trend topics. I might create them twice a year, and these could be longer 2 to 5 day sessions. They might meet once a month for 3 or 4 months. And sample course topics would be things like women in leadership, corporate sustainability, team building, collaboration principles, and things like that. So PACE will develop programs for more C-level type executives, senior level managers, and things like that. Customized course development, as I mentioned, these are programs where I'll take the curriculum to their site and their employees. So those are kind of our 3 general content areas and course content areas for PACE. Long-term vision, I really want to position professional development. I like to call it career insurance. If something would happen where you might get furloughed, laid off, need or want to make a pivot, if you have kind of skills in your pocket that you have kind of continued to sharpen your saw, as I kind of started this whole presentation with, you're better prepared for what's next. I also want to really have this program be very entrepreneurial and nimble to respond to industry demands. So John Riggs and I were talking the other day. He's sensing that there's a great need right now for the sales leaders of the world for selling through Zoom. That's how people are selling these days. So we're working to develop a course very quickly to respond to that need and field that course for basically webinar type sales efforts. Hope to build strong partnerships with large companies, either through custom courses or have companies underwrite some of these programs so the tuition would be reduced slightly, and ultimately extend the reach of the Stetson brand. Stetson is kind of a 185-acre bubble there on Woodland, and I always thought that DeLand needs Stetson more than Stetson needs DeLand, and in a sense, I'd like to kind of help kind of build those bridges with the business community, and I think this program certainly will do it. I like to also, think of, myself, the program and the courses we offer as kind of a career Sherpa, so to speak. Not that I've ever been to Mount Everest, but read a lot of books on mountain climbing and things like that. I'm kind of fascinated by this indigenous people over there in Nepal that, not only are their bodies acclimated to the altitude, but they've done it so many times, like they know what you need. And you don't always know it, but they've kind of seen it all. They've done it all. I'm sure they've lost lives on some of these trips. And so, to have a career Sherpa that can kind of see around the corner, see what's next, what's going to happen in 5 years, that's kind of like how I like to think of professional and corporate education. There's also some community value through PACE. I think it extends the intellectual value of the university. It's the gateway to many resources and programs Stetson has to offer. Think of someone that works for a business in DeLand, and they, have never even been on campus. Maybe they've never had children or friends that went there, never attended a graduation, maybe have been to a football game. This way, the business community and the workforce in the area can kind of take a peek under the hood, so to speak, of Stetson. And maybe they have kids that are coming of age that are looking at colleges, or maybe they're thinking about an MBA. I really think PACE is a way to market to a brand new audience and stress the great tools and faculty that we have to offer here. And if you think about it, this little diagram was again meant to build, but mostly Stetson, is mostly focused on degree-seeking students. That's, where we get our revenue. Tuition is king. And then those students typically will go to the business community. All right, and sometimes the business community may send, friends and family back to the degree-seeking funnel to earn undergraduate degrees. But when you PACE kind of acts as that conduit between the business community and Stetson. So it's not just a one-way where, Stetson is always talking to 18 and 19-year-olds, but now Stetson can communicate both ways with the business community, and the business community can learn a little bit more about us. Don't have to look at this. This presentation will be up later, but right now we have launched 21 self-paced open access online courses through a partner called MindEdge, started by some MIT and Harvard folks about 7 or 8 years ago, and they work with about 400 or 500 universities across the country. I did a lot of different providers because I knew it would be a stress on our faculty to get this many courses launched quickly, all online, knowing that that was really the only course of action I had with the pandemic. And also we're offering with the discount code 10% off these courses through the end of August. But go to our site, check them out. There's quite a variety. Some take a lot longer. They range in price from $79, I think, are some of the cheapest ones, to $400 or $500 for some of the more comprehensive certificate programs. We also are offering 2 free creativity courses. We think people have some time on their hands, and who couldn't stand to be a little creative. So personal creativity, and if you work in teams and organizations where creativity is valued, you can also take this course. I think each one of them are about 5 contact hours. They're quick and easy. Normally $79. They're offered for free through the end of August. So definitely take advantage of that. We have just built, starting July 28th, both of these courses will be faculty-led, or at least adjunct and faculty-led. Meg Young is creating a course on navigating your career, which I thought was super timely. And she will have some hybrid Zoom sessions on the front end and back end of this program with some self-paced modules in between. So this would be for anyone looking to pivot, rethink their career, need some help with resume writing, how do I manage a LinkedIn page, building my network, and things like that. Another course that I'm really stoked about is Park Howe. He is a friend of mine that I took, was fortunate enough to have a workshop through him. Excellent in the art of storytelling. And you think, well, my kids still tell stories, what's hard about that? Well, it's kind of, in marketing, and storytelling is kind of the new black. And, if businesses that tell a good story, and I'm talking beyond your about page on your website, but storytelling is probably the most powerful forms of persuasion and ultimately what people remember a lot more than features and benefits. So he's doing a course very similar. He will have some hybrid sessions on the front and back with some self-paced modules in between. So closing in here on the end, what I need from you, I'd love for you to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'd love for you to ping me with some thoughts or ideas. My contact information is down below. What are your skill gaps? What are your interests? What are your business needs? We've got a lot of strong alumni out there that are working for tremendous businesses, corporations. You might have a need that Stetson could fill, whether it be custom training where we would come to you, or whether you would do courses online or in class. I think I have a pretty good handle on workforce needs, but if you come to me and say, I need a course in XYZ, I will work hard to, fill that need with the current faculty we have and or consultants or subject matter experts. Also, what is your preferred method of learning? I know, online is kind of the only game in town right now, but there may be other modalities that you would prefer, doing this in more of a workshop, evenings, night, days, etc. And finally, putting on my sales hat here, do you work for a company that may want group training? So I'd always love to follow up on those kind of leads. So I think that is the end. We'll kind of start or end where we started. Stephen Covey was not the first to quote this. Abraham Lincoln, way back when, said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. So that's what professional development is all about, sharpening your skills, being prepared for what's next, career insurance, if you will. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Alex. Any questions? And it's been a pleasure to talk a little bit about professional development with you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Bud. This was really great content and information. It was really awesome to hear from you. And I do have a couple questions. So first, what kind of inspired you and or Stetson to take on this opportunity and bringing back the PACE program now?
I think, PACE has been around under a variety of names and leaders for probably 7 or 8, 10 years, okay? Boundless Learning was one, I think lifelong learning, and it's gone through several iterations. We did have a lot of courses down at our Celebration campus, tapping into the Orlando market, and we did a lot of work with Disney. Back in March, we decided to close that facility down. And I think, Neil and Yorgos at the LBC, I guess I had made an impression with my teaching abilities, and they were looking for someone that had some corporate background, had some marketing background, management, and I think all things considered, my resume was kind of written for this. And universities, I think, one of the points in terms of what's happening is undergrad enrollment is flat to declining. Now, again, I say that with Stetson probably doing better than most because we've been around a while. We're somewhat prestigious. We have a kind of almost a brand that we live up to. And I think our enrollment pre-COVID was up about 4%. But for the most part, I think it's kind of a something that we really felt like we needed to do in response to what's happening out there. If fewer and fewer people are seeing the value of a 4-year degree, what else can we do with the resources we have, meaning our faculty and our buildings, to serve a different audience? And so professional development and professional training is a very popular way for universities to kind of repackage what they have and still do what they do best, which is instructing people just to a different audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another one, I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but how important would you say it is for individuals or organizations to, especially in a time like we are in right now, where folks might have more time either for themselves or more time in front of a computer or more time to kind of invest in this, but how important would you say it is for them to take advantage of the program like PACE and kind of continue adapting to what's going on in their industry?
Again, it's my little baby, so I certainly want to promote it. But I would say we all need to be constantly learning. And when you're done learning, you're done. And another saying that I like is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I always like to feel that we need to constantly be adapting and learning new things. You never know what's next with your career. There's very few companies that can promise you that they will maintain your employment forever. And you may want to change or pivot to something else. You may have a different like or just don't like what you're doing. So I think the more you're prepared for that, the more marketable you are. Even new graduates, I would say, there's nothing wrong with, I think the term in education is called scaffolding on. So there's nothing wrong with scaffolding on some certificates of completions with some of these PACE courses. I would think if you're going into a management job with your 4-year management degree and you have a project management certificate with it, you've passed the test and you're PMI approved, you're that much more hireable and employable and in demand than someone who doesn't. So, sometimes it kind of takes a little bit of an inventory of what you're good at and where you want to go. If you're super happy with your job, great, keep doing it. If you want to progress, you might look at that next position up the ladder and say, okay, I need a little help in this. And sometimes your employer will offer those courses, or you can mentor with someone in that position, and that's fine. But other times it might not be a bad idea to take an online course or sales management if you're looking to get into that position. So, I would say, just always be learning. And, even those 20 some courses that I have, there's something in there that probably should pique your interest. Cybersecurity is a field that is booming right now. And so, as we get more connected with our devices, there's more and more need for those. So if you have a cybersecurity background and you are wanting to get out of the current job or maybe look at a different career, that would be a good one to go into. Again, business, finance, and IT were the top 40% of where most new jobs are coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was great. I really love the information, and it was really great to learn more about the program. And thank you to Olivia for helping me kind of put this all together. And for everybody watching or anybody that watches later on, if you are interested in learning more about the program, feel free to reach out to any of us in the alumni office or reach out to Bud directly. If you can't end up finding his contact information throughout the presentation, reach out to us. We can get you connected with him. But again, thank you for everybody that watches. And Bud, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thanks again.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks.